I guess the feedback that I got that I guess the cons were, one of them was that we'd get people asking for our services who were not in our niche. We were doing websites and marketing for lawyers, but
Hey, what is up, guys? This is Antaz. So we're gonna talk to Andy Cabasso here today. So he's a founder of a SaaS tool called Postaga. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let him introduce himself. So
hey, thanks, Antaz. So, bit about my background. Years ago, I started and ran a digital agency, and then sold that agency. And from there, and from the experience I had with the agency, I started Postaga, which was originally geared towards being an all-in-one cold email outreach tool that was meant for link building. But over time, it's sort of morphed and evolved, and now it's kind of like I call it like a Swiss Army knife of cold email outreach, as it's useful for a kind of a variety of different use cases for email outreach, from link building to PR to sales, lead gen, and things like that. And that's what I'm working on today. I also have another related product, which is called Boxword, which is a standalone email warm-up tool, which helps improve your email deliverability. And that's about me.
like a quick question, like why didn't you just integrate Boxword with Postaga?
As far as the technical aspects of it, so we have been looking into it, and we plan on like doing that in the future. But as we were like working on the architecture and building it, we realized it could be a standalone product. That there are plenty of people who are dealing with email deliverability issues, and we didn't want to make it so that they had to come into our cold email environment to if they just wanted to warm up their emails. So that's why we figured make it a standalone, so it can be useful for anyone really.
A lot of your competitors, like let's just say Lamlist,
Sure.
there's like Hunter, Nov, and then there's these new players like Instantly.
Hmm.
There's other players like Salesforce. All of these people currently have created their warm up tool right inside the main tool. Right.
Hmm.
So don't you think like maybe your users are missing out on it? What do you think?
So it's part of the plan. Like there will be a closer, tighter integration in the future. Yes.
All right, all right. So, do tell me, like, how was your experience while running your agency? Like, why did you just sell it off? Right.
Um, why we sold it was the right offer came at the right time, really. Um, as far as like the timeline goes, like thinking back on it, it wasn't that long that we had, in hindsight, we had built up the agency over 3 years, which isn't that long. But in that short amount of time, we had hundreds of customers. Part of the success was that we niched down. We did digital marketing specifically for law firms and lawyers. And so our branding and our marketing was all geared towards this space. And our content marketing, very importantly, was geared towards this space. And so people coming to our site um, were in this target audience, and it was easy for us to compete from like an SEO perspective, as opposed to if you're a digital agency that serves everyone. And there are plenty of digital agencies that do that. A challenge is like if you're working with lawyers or in restaurants and financial advisors and SaaS businesses, all of your content and marketing has to be uh, kind of relevant and accessible for as broad an audience as possible. And it makes it harder to outcompete people that are focusing on a specific niche. So that helped us out really to build quicker than I think we grow other than we otherwise would have. Another aspect was from the beginning, we focused on making our agency a productized service, meaning that we weren't just going to do, oh, hey, we'll do a website design for you and it'll be hourly or something, or like it'll be this much amount of money for this. And then if there are revisions or whatnot, project can go on forever. We had very fixed scope services where we would say, here's package A, B, and C. Package A gets you uh, 10 pages of content, pre-written content, a contact page, a bio page, a home page with 2 different options to choose from, and things like that. And so they're like being able to like offer it very specifically like this helped us to grow, but also helped us to like build our team because we know that the process is repeatable and consistent every time. If a client says to us, "Oh, I want 20 more pages or I want this widget on our site." Well, if like they want like a widget or something like that, we'd say like we don't that's not part of the plan that you signed up for. If you want custom coding or something like that, that's either something we're not going to offer or here's our price sheet for that and what that looks like. But having this sort of fixed scope project and process made it so we could more easily hire people, bring them onto the team, and everyone knows where we are at any given point with any project. And like importantly, like for an owner or a founder, if this is a business that you're looking to grow, it makes it so the business in a perfect world can keep on going and keep operating without your involvement in everything. If you have a process and like an assembly line, think about it, and you have team members and they all know what they're responsible for and the project is very specific, then the team members can work on that and move it forward without you. And so that's really like the secret to how we were able to scale and go from like 0 to 200 projects in 3 years.
So do tell me, like, since you had like a productized service, right? So
Mm.
it does come with its own cons, own sets of cons, right? So how did you handle those?
I guess the feedback that I got that I guess the cons were one of them was that we'd get people asking for our services who were not in our niche. We were doing websites and marketing for lawyers, but someone would come to us and say, "Hey, I was recommended by my lawyer. I provide an accounting services or something like that. Would you do a website for us?" And we would just say, "No, sorry, we can't do that for you." And they're
But
like,
aren't you losing out on money if you don't do that?
in the short term, yes. But the way that we think about it is that we've done dozens, like hundreds of law firm websites. We have all of these tools and templates and experience that we can rely on that can help us to more easily spin up new sites. Like after you've done 100 websites, all in the same niche, you have a portfolio of work that you can call on. And so like there's like a finite number of layouts that one is going to want to have for biography pages or about us pages, contact pages, or home pages for law firm websites. And after you do 100 of them, like you have these templates that you can use over and over again. This way, every new site you do, it's going to be much quicker. The first site that you build in any given space is always going to take the most time because you're starting from scratch. But by the 100th site you do, it's going to be much, much quicker. But if we take on an accounting firm, then they may have some needs that are things that we're not currently doing, and it's not in our wheelhouse. It's going to end up taking longer to build the site. And with every like first site that we do, we know it's going to take longer, but we're going to get experience out of it. And if accounting is not the space we want to go into, or restaurants is not the space we want to go into, the time that we'd be spending there would be extra, like it would take more time, it would cost us more, and it's not in the space that we want to get into. It's just not going to be worth it for us in the long term. And so we would flat out like reject business, knowing that Like this wasn't part of our core. It wasn't part of our identity. Um, and like as far as our marketing goes, like we were very kind of clear with our scope that like we were very clear and upfront, which turned some people away, sure, but it made it much easier for us to sell to people who were interested and who this was a right fit for. And so there was a lot less friction. I need to spend a lot less time on like sales calls. And so like getting people onboarded and signed up and through the process was a lot quicker than if there were projects that had like just a much larger scope, let's say, or wouldn't be really relevant to what we've done. Um, like for any law firm, we have a like that we were bringing on, we have a set number of specific questions we would ask during the intake, and these questions were all relevant to them. If we would suddenly have an accounting website or a restaurant website, we would have to like redo our intake that in a way that would work for them, or like if it's like a restaurant, like we had like people come to us like, oh, I want to like site for our restaurant. Well, a restaurant website is different from a law firm website. They're going to want a menu. They're going to want like, I don't know if it's their PDF or interactive or something like that, but it just wasn't part of like we had to be willing to turn away business or refer it elsewhere so that we could strengthen our core business. And I mean, that's the case I feel like with at least every like disciplined business is we're not going to be a perfect fit for everybody. And so there are some people that like are just it's just our offering is not relevant for, but that makes us stronger in our space.
Do tell me, like, I know that you're a lawyer, so how did that come into play? Like, how did that help you running your agency?
Answer is I was studying law and realized I did not want to be a lawyer and practicing law. And so I started a side business with a friend of mine who was at the time a freelance web designer. And
Is that Sam?
that is Sam, my co-founder Sam to this day. At the time, Sam was doing freelance web design. And from his experience, he was experiencing that he was selling his time for money. He was getting like charging other agencies an hourly rate, and they'd pay him, and he would be only be getting paid when he's working. He couldn't take vacations without thinking, I'm losing money because I'm not working. So when we talked about working together, he said, I want to do a productized service. I want to make sure it's fixed scope. And I want to make sure, very importantly, that everything that we're doing has a recurring revenue component to it. So if you're doing web design, some people might say like, all right, I'm going to do a web design for $5,000 and then that's out the door and done. But if that's what you're doing, then there is no recurring revenue to it. Then every month you're having to look for new business. And anytime you have like a down period in sales, you might be not making money. And that's not a foundation that you can build on, and it's not an asset that is as sellable. But with every service that we are providing, we're doing web design and also hosting support, sometimes also SEO or paid search. And so charging the recurring revenue made sure that like we had, if even if I made no sales in a month, we would have that recurring business, and we had an asset that we could sell, that we could say like, if we did nothing else today, we would have this money coming into the business. And so that was valuable for us there. But to your original question, I realized I didn't want to practice law. And so I started with Sam doing this side business of web design and marketing for lawyers, figuring that my background in legal could help me better speak to our target audience. And that ended up being the case, and that worked out.
Yeah, so okay, let's move on to the next topic. So, like Postaga is kind of like an all-in-one tool, right? So it pretty much does sales, it pretty much does link building, digital PR. It's pretty much you know, like it acts like the Hulk, right? So if there are like so many freelancers out there who is currently just raking up some money, chipping away, and then they want to kickstart an agency. So how would you suggest that they should choose a niche? because since you were literally a lawyer, you didn't really have to choose, right? You know what? I'm
That
good
was
good at that stuff. I'm just gonna go sell to my people. So yeah, it's obviously easy for you, but what would those people do who do not have a chosen niche? So what do you think? How would
mhm.
you suggest them, and what do they do?
So I guess there are a few ways that I would kind of go about it. One thing I would say is like if you're already freelancing, take a look at like the project that you've been doing and that you've been working on, and like what are the kinds of projects that you frankly like you enjoy working on the most, that you want to keep working on. Let's for the moment we'll put aside any of the research or financial elements of this and just talk about like what do you like what are the projects that you're enjoying working on. Don't think about like just not thinking about uh like marketing factors or whatever, but like let's say that you pick a specific niche. Are you going to be happy working on it, or are you going to be frustrated, or are you picking it only because you think you're like uh, you are interested in the potential that it has as a market? Well, if you're not interested in the space, then it's gonna over time it's going to be hard to stay and keep motivated and disciplined about it. If you're not into it, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to get resentful. You're going to get frustrated. And so I would say like be mindful of what are the projects that uh, you could see yourself building an agency. Like what are the spaces that your clients are in that you could see yourself building an agency around, and that you see that has potential. Let's yeah, just start with that. Then, as the practical considerations, you want to if there's a space that you're interested in, we also need to make sure that there is opportunity in this space. Let's say you love doing web design or like web design for creatives. Let's say, um, cool. That sounds good. Is there a market for it? Is there opportunity there? Are I guess it kind of depends on what industry you're already in, but like what you're seeing that people are doing. Like, I'm just using web design as examples. I know there are freelancers in tons of spaces, but web design is what I know, and so I'm just relating to it. But let's say I would first like do some research to see what other players exist in the space, and if there are people, that's fine. If they're long established, that can help validate further. I wouldn't necessarily like be worried that there's another company that is doing web design for creatives. Maybe I shouldn't get into it because they're getting all the business. That's with something like the kind of freelance related professions, it tends not to be the case. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But if there is no one offering services in that specific niche, I'd be curious why that might be. Is it not a big enough space? If there's not enough interest, I would be more careful and kind of be looking into it. One other thing I would be doing is customer interviews. So I would reach out to either former clients or reach out to potential clients, either cold emailing or cold uh, on Facebook or LinkedIn, Twitter, socials, things like that, asking to kind of like just to chat, to ask them some questions, um, and like learn about their business and like learn about like is what you're offering not coming at it from like a perspective of trying to sell them, but trying to learn more about them and see if your idea of an offering is something that they would be willing to pay money for. Um, People can tell you, "Oh, this sounds like a great idea," but then would you pay for that? Would you pay a premium for that? Um, they may say no, and it's like, all right, well that helps me because like a definitely a thing that I've encountered through experiences running businesses and like mistakes I've made along the way and that I see other people making is you hear from people saying, "Oh, this sounds like a great idea. This sounds like a great idea." Um, but would you pay money for it? Um, if I had a sales page and a pre-selling page, would you sign up and put a credit card down for it? If they say no, then it means they're not serious about it, or it maybe it's not a good opportunity. But the important thing is that the money demonstrates the value here. Um, so don't just go with people saying that sounds like a good idea if there is not demonstration that people are willing to pay for it.
How would you suggest that these people get started, creating their own agency? So
Mm,
you already told the first part, you know, just reach out to your previous clients as a
mhm.
freelancer and just build your relationship and get them on board for new deals. Um,
Well I guess before I even pick a specific niche, I wanna do the interviewing, like, just, like, spend a couple of weeks doing customer interviews or potential customer interviews to see what their pain points are, if they'd be interested in not to sell them, not to say, like, I'm reaching out because I wanna, like, get you on a sales call, but you're gathering information. You wanna better and, like, a good example of, like, customer interview frameworks, one is it's called jobs to be done. Um, there are plenty of other, uh, ideas for, like, customer interviews, but the idea being you're not trying to sell them, you're trying to validate your idea to make sure that this is worth pursuing and that people are gonna pay for it and that you should invest your time in building the business in this niche. And so once you've gotten to the idea validation and that you have people who are willing to put money towards it, then then it's time to build your agency. Let's say what I would be doing is like keeping in mind that this is going to be an iterative developing process that how your processes look on day 1 are probably not going to be how they look a year from now, especially in your first year. But what I would be doing is I would be writing out a process for a workflow for each of your client projects, setting fixed scope projects so that are the entitlements of what the client is going to get. Here is what they're going to get on a one-time basis on onboarding. Here's what they're going to be getting on an ongoing basis if they're getting a recurring service like SEO or PPC or something social or email marketing or whatever. Um, and you build a workflow for how to execute on that. And to begin with, when it's just you, it can be like a bunch of bullet points of an outline, but at the very least, there should be a process to it. There should be a process that you repeat every single time you do this, and you can fill in more information as you develop it further. Um, but with the goal being that you have this documentation so that one day when you're ready to bring on contractors and other freelancers or full-time people, that they can follow your workflow and they can do the process for your clients. And this way you're also going to make sure that you have a consistent delivered product. So if you have your scope of, let's say, a website with 5 pages and a bio page and this and this and this, that all the things that you need to get, you can do it and make sure that you check mark go through all these things and that you have delivered on that, um, to make sure that like your quality is going to be consistent and that the people are getting what they're paying for. The last thought here also is, um, when pricing your services, what these products are going to be, make sure that you are um, putting in padding in terms of cost of like your time. Like if you think, oh, it's going to take 5 hours, pad in a little bit extra because things always happen.
So yeah, you've already talked about like how would a web designer would get their first clients.
Mm,
Um, so it's basically just reach out to your old clients. So what if I am not a freelancer? what if I just want to get started and I have maybe got some money from my dad, from my mom, and I just want to kickstart my very own agency. For those people, how would they get their very first clients? And how would Postaga fill in the shoes to getting new clients?
Sure. Thanks for the segue. Um, yeah, as far as like the most cost-effective uses of your time go and efforts go towards finding new customers, I would absolutely recommend doing cold outreach. If I know like people think, oh, well, what if I do like paid ads or social ads? That can be a very quick way to burn through all your money, especially if you don't have a large budget, and especially if this is like your first time like doing this. You're going to blow through thousands of dollars before you get meaningful data on paid ads to know what is working and what is not working. But cold email comparatively is much less expensive to do. It's much easier to like find and prospect for uh, potential customers in a space, um, and build and send them a pitch geared towards getting them to take a meeting with you to work with you. For like sales oriented like lead generation, like Postaga, as I mentioned, like it has built-in prospecting, so you can like say like, all right, uh, I want to find law firms, or I want to find accountants, I want to find certain types of businesses in these cities and places, and Postaga basically will find these businesses, find their contact details, and then you can throw them into a sequence and email them and follow up with them until they respond to you. And as far as like cold email pitching goes, um, the most important thing I'd say, and the biggest mistake that I see people making, is related to like the pitch copy. Um, a lot of people will have pitch copy like basically the contents of their email will be like, "Hello, are you interested in these services? We offer this, this, and this, and this, and this. Um, are you free to discuss like our services or whatever?" And so off, like it just completely kind of I think misses the mark in that if you put yourself in the shoes of the recipient, the person who gets your email, they probably get, if they're a more established business, they probably get dozens of cold emails every day. And a lot of the cold emails have a similar look to them, like "Dear Sir slash Madam," or "We offer web design, we offer marketing, we offer IT services." Great. And
Like the
you
most common email that people get, like "Dear Soraya" for Heidi.
Yeah, and it's just it's not at all taking into account what the person on the receiving end is going to be thinking. Um, and one framework that I kind of like a lot, or one person I like in the space of cold emailing is John Buchan, a guy out of the UK who has basically his concept is called charm offensive, where it takes a more, let's say, irreverent, silly, jokey kind of tone with the email contents, where like if you open an email and it like the email is like throwing a joke at you, like, "Hey, quick question, why did the something something," like if it's like a joke,
I
like
think I remember one, like, "Hey, I just hacked a super secret meta spider something and hacked a super server to get your email," something like that was. And yeah, like he really knows how to, do cold emails. So
right. And like if you're someone who's used to getting dozens of cold emails a day, and you see an email that's like, "Hey, I use this Megatron 3000 to get your email." You're gonna like pause at the very least and be like, "What the heck is this?" But it stops the recipient in their tracks from hitting delete right away, because like if I see for the most part, if I see a cold email, I'm just gonna like delete, delete, delete. It's not relevant to me. When are they ever relevant to me? But if the email is, if it's like silly or whatever, I might be like, what? Wait, what is this? And then I'm gonna stop, and then I'm actually gonna read the next sentence and keep going. And the goal of a cold email shouldn't be to sell someone on a product because it's not going to happen. They don't trust you. They don't know who you are. You are just some person that has their email address. The goal of a cold email should be to schedule a meeting and to get the other person on the phone or on a Zoom. And keeping that in mind, that is what like your end goal should be. And in your first email, it shouldn't be like, uh, hey, here's a link to my scheduler, because that's not going to work. Um, Really, the call to action should be like, what do you think? Are you interested? And like just keeping in mind that people who regularly email between each other have a certain style. Like no one, I'm not going to necessarily email a colleague like, "Hey, can we schedule a call? Here is my scheduler." It's more informal than that, and like sometimes there's like back and forth here, and so kind of be like prepared for that and be mindful of that with your cold emailing. Um, and like as far as like tools go, like one of the reasons that we built Postaga is because we saw that there is a very disconnected process with many different tools for in the space of like cold emailing. Like there are tools for prospecting and finding websites or businesses. There are other tools for finding contact information. There are other tools for finding emails and validating emails, and tools for build just for building and sending emails, or just for having a CRM. And every one of those disconnected steps involves importing and exporting CSVs
And
and
then don't
using,
even get started on Zapier, you know.
yeah, and all
So,
of that. So we built Postaga to kind of bring it all in house under one roof. And so if you want to like find people to reach out to, find their contact info, and send them a pitch sequence, you can do that all in Postaga's platform.
so one of my friend is Andrew Hidukovic. He currently
Hmm.
runs Lead Hype, and his product is Scrape Hype. He pretty much sends like 5 million emails a month, which is bonkers. So what he does is he basically just adds his clients different domain TLDs into his
Hmm.
system, and then uh, like explodes a bomb of like tons and tons of cold emails. He always gets leads. So what happens is that his tool, Scrape Pipe,
Hmm.
pretty much scrapes LinkedIn directly, and it always
Hmm.
gives you live and fresh leads. So how
Hmm.
does Postaga come into play? Like, does Postaga have a database, and or does Postaga scrapes live results similar to this?
Yep.
Where does Postaga gets his data from? Like Scrape
Mhm.
Hive gets his data from LinkedIn. Where does Postaga gets his data from? So if you
Yeah.
could,
Yeah. So Postaga does a live scrape, yeah, of search results and things like that. Yeah, we kind of like contemplated like, oh, we could, if like there are some platforms out there like lead platforms that have their own built databases, but as we found, a lot of that can be out of date real quick. Like um, people change jobs, get fired, businesses shut down, and when we were like starting out doing lead gen oriented outreach, like if we take from databases, we would see that like if we ran them through a validator, like sometimes like half of the contacts that we found would just drop off because we couldn't find like because we couldn't verify that those emails were still legit. So our process scrapes results to find businesses, contact people, all that.
okay, great. So to the moving on to the next question. So if I am offering, let's say, just multiple services, right?
Mhm.
So let's say I know web designing, I also know lead gen, and I also know, let's say, copywriting, right? And maybe I also know, let's say, social media management and stuff. So how would or would that specific person choose what services to provide the customers? And like, for example, let's say he's good at everything, but he might not even know what he's really good at, right? Like there are tons and tons of people out there who doesn't really know what's he really good at, right? So how would he or she choose the services? What do you think?
So like this is someone who is, I guess, is doing different services and wants to figure out what should be like the one service they do.
Yeah, and what because he's thinking from a monetary perspective, right? So,
Well,
or yeah,
I
like
mean,
you also said that always do whenever you're choosing the niche,
mm,
always choose the thing that you love, right? So
well, not necessarily always choosing the thing that you love, but like choose something that you wouldn't hate being like your focus as an area. But like I mean that as like a niche, as far as like a niche goes, like as far as like an industry that your brand is targeting. Like our agency did web design, SEO, paid search, some email marketing, some social, and like these are all different services, and like we could bundle them um, and offer them individually or together. And that's fine. You can have multiple services. Like each service should have their own workflows and pricing and and process and things like that. That's not. I wouldn't say like only do one thing, but mainly have one niche audience. Like when I'm talking about niches, I'm talking about like the industry that you're targeting. So like if I'm targeting SaaS businesses, that's going to be like that's my industry, that's the niche that I'm going for. But I could do multiple services for SaaS businesses as long as they're kind of like relevant. That's what I mean by that.
So, how would people create the perfect pricing? Like you just said that you used to do productized services, right? So,
Mm,
and then like there are so many agencies who doesn't even have written services because like they just say, "Oh, we do link building. That's it. Oh, we design website. That's it. There's no
mm.
pricing, nothing." So, how would the people who are just getting started create the perfect pricing?
So the kind of like what I would do is like when you're creating like your fixed scope and your fixed deliverables, do your best to estimate how much time it's taking you to do all of these things. Like if I'm building a website, let's say, um, if I'm building a website within these specific parameters, how much time is it going to take me to do that? Then multiply that time by an hourly rate that you feel is worth your time. And then pad that with a few more hours because it's going to be the case that it's going to just typically take more. And now you have a baseline. Now, over time, you may find that like the time it's going to take you to do these deliverables and projects is going to decrease because you're going to like build team knowledge or assets. Like you're going to build like over time, you're going to have more templates and things like that, so you can more quickly bang out these projects. But like to begin with, like the first projects you probably do are going to be more labor and time intensive than your rate would otherwise be. Um, but as you're like doing the projects, I would say also use time tracking on yourself so that you can really see how much time you're spending on these projects and maybe make adjustments as needed. The pricing that you have on day one doesn't have to be what the pricing is 6 months from now. Your pricing, you could have like lower pricing to begin with as you are trying to get some clients and get some like portfolio pieces to show off. Um, but your pricing should absolutely like over time it should increase. Uh, part of this is like a different discussion that's not just about like pricing for your time, but also pricing for your value and your positioning. Like, are you providing higher end services or like who is the audience that you're going for in that industry that you're targeting? But if you're trying to offer like high-end services and you want to price it higher, you also have to be able to demonstrate that demonstrate that you're worth it and your value is there. And so you're going to need portfolio pieces that show that off. Like, I think back to, we had the very first like enterprise client my agency had. Um, we were like evaluating it and we were thinking like, we don't quite have like, we have to customize the pricing a little bit because they have a lot more like that needs to be migrated over. um, and what we should be charging them is like, what we should be charging them, and then and what I'm sure other agencies would be charging them would probably be close to $100,000. um,
Damn.
because of the amount of because of the breadth of the project, and how much, like, I mean, what it is. But also, we want, like, I want this client, so I can have on our portfolio page that we have a client of this size. That way we can show to other clients of that size, we have experience with this kind of size client. And that can help us land those clients. Like, I'm not going to be able to keep landing big projects if I don't have any other big projects that I can show off. Because my competitors in their portfolio pages, they're showing these big projects that they've worked on that are gorgeous, and they can show that they are worth that higher price that they'd be charging. But we can't demonstrate that until we have work that we can show off of our case studies or testimonials. So the very first enterprise project we did, we definitely underpriced, and that helped us to, like, they became a portfolio piece of ours, and we used that as leverage to share with other prospective customers that were larger, and that helped us get, larger business. So kind of keeping that in mind as well.
Okay, moving on to the next. So, do you think reviews actually matters, and how would someone who's getting started would get their first reviews, on their site or their LinkedIn? What do you think?
Sure. So I think like reviews on your like business website, testimonials in particular, absolutely help, because it's this form of like third party validation, this social proof that I can say on my website whatever I want to say. I can say I am the best copywriter, the best freelancer, the best link builder, and anyone reading that might think, okay, you can say that, but let me hear from someone who doesn't have a vested interest in this. And so if I have testimonials that say, Andy is the best, he was very fairly priced and delivered ahead of time, it was amazing working with him, I got amazing support. That is something that uh, like I can't say about myself that someone else can, that can show to other people what it's like to work with me. Because like the biggest fears that people have when hiring a new company or a service provider are they going to be able to deliver? Am I going to be happy with what I get from them? And is it going to be like worth my time and money? And before you hire someone, there is always going to be some uncertainty. I don't know for sure that if I spend thousands of dollars with this web designer that I'm going to be happy with the design. But if I see all these testimonials that say that, like, that they were happy, then it's going to make me a little bit more comfortable with that. And so, um, one thing that it also reminds me of is when we first started, we had no clients and no testimonials and nothing. I did free projects for 3 people. I told them, "Let me build a website for you for free. I get but know that because I'm doing this for you for free, I want this to be a portfolio piece for my website. So you can have some input, but for me giving you a free website, I'm gonna want some creative control on this, but that's the price to pay." And so they said, "Yeah, I'll take a free website." And so I got to design really great quality work that I could then throw on my portfolio page on my site, so potential customers could see examples of my work. And then I got a testimonial of what a great job I did. And so that like, those are the first projects I did, which better helped me to demonstrate my capabilities to new potential customers.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. So, so let's say I am providing web design services, right? So
Mhm.
how would I create offers?
I guess how would you like create like your services exactly?
Yeah, like the no-brainer offers. So like something that's gonna make people think, oh, if I don't take it, I might be missing out on a lot. So how would that how would
Well,
how would someone create those offers?
I feel like with web design, I don't know that. Well, for any of like your customers, you want to really, I think, first understand what is their process to get to the point where they need your services. Like, do like doing cold out, like I do cold outreach on every day, and like we have a service component as well to our business where we're doing outreach on behalf of clients, and we do lead gen outreach. And there are some people like that you reach out to, and they're gonna say, you know what, like, all right, the service looks interesting, but we're just not in need of the service right now. And no matter what your irresistible offer is going to be, it's just not the right timing, or it's not a good fit because they just redid their website, or they are budgeting or planning for doing that next year or the year after or something like that, or they're contemplating selling or getting acquired or merging, and so this isn't really a big priority for them. And so I wouldn't just think about like I want to create an irresistible offer, but like I want to have an offer that is going to resonate with the audience when it's the right place, right time for them. And kind of part of it is going to be a learning process. You're going to develop that over time. You may um, with like a first round of like uh, our web design product, we weren't providing content. We said like we'll design you this many pages, but you have to provide your bio, your photo, and things like that. But we were over time finding that if if we had to wait on the client to provide text content, for a brand new site, then it took a lot longer to get the sites built and launched because we were waiting on them. So we increased our pricing, we included copywriting service with that, and it helped us get our sites out through our workflow faster because we weren't waiting on the client. And so my lesson here is just that don't worry too much about it for day one, because as you get more information and data, your offerings and your processes will evolve. But just keep that in mind and be open to it. You don't have to be married to this is our product on day one.
Great answer. So okay, so how would someone find the right type of leads for the web design services?
Mhm.
Right right type of leads. And how does Postaga play into all of this?
Sure. So I guess the right type of lead for let's saying web design services. Well, you want to find, I guess, businesses in a certain industry. Like my if I'm going after uh, financial service providers or something like that, I'm going to make sure that my copy in my pitch is geared towards businesses like that. And in my prospecting, I'm going to be looking for businesses that fit within that category, that type. Like Postaga's search engine can find financial services businesses and things like that, and broken down even as far as like by cities. And so I might have an outreach campaign targeting um, uh, financial services investor advisors in New York City or Chicago or Orlando, Florida, wherever. That's something that you can kind of like build in our outreach platform. But um, I'd say like one thing to keep in mind is the more specific and targeted your pitch copy is, generally the better it does. So um, rather than like saying like, "Oh, I bought a list of financial advisors, I'm gonna just reach out to all of them," you may have better luck with like a list that's more specific and tailored.
Right. So what should your campaign status should look like? Let's say how much responses should I be getting? How much FUs should I be getting?
Mm.
and how much positive responses should I be getting if we do everything right, let's say for SEO or web design clients?
Sure. So for sales lead gen, um, I find that like out of all the types of email outreach, sales lead gen tends to have like the lowest like response rates, um, because like our offer here is our services, and it just may not be a good fit at the time because with your prospecting you may not know, are these financial services companies in the market for web design services right now. But as far as like benchmarks go for like what what should I expect and what's bad, I've seen that like 40 to 50% open rate is expected or typical. If it's above 50%, it's better. If it's above 70% open rate, you're doing something very right. If your like response rate is, and depending on like how your prospecting is, the response rates tip I can see like being between like 1 to 5%, which is pretty low, which just kind of goes to show that part of this is a numbers game. That if you build one list and it has 100 people on it, you may get 1 to 5 responses, and of those 1 to 5 responses, one of them may be interested. They may all say no thanks. And if you have like you may think after like reaching out to 100 people and getting no leads of it that, oh, maybe cold outreach isn't for me. But the fact is it is often a numbers game, and you may need to reach out to thousands of people before you get better data, for example, that tells you this pitch is not working, or this pitch is working. I guess related to that, A/B testing is super super important. Try different copy, to see what gets a better response.
How do you, like pre-qualify your lead list and say like, let's say I have a list of domains, right? So,
Mhm,
and then I manually checked all of those. Like, okay, these sites have SEO issues. These sites have, let's say, UX issues. These sites are using
mhm,
technology from way back from 2003. So now that
mhm.
you have a list of qualified leads, do you think the response rate could be better?
So if you are doing very specific work, like where you're like spending time on each individual contact, like doing like a little mini audit of their site or something like that, you can absolutely get a much better response rate, especially like if in your email you demonstrate that. Like if you can show them like there's an angle that I've seen and with cold emailing for like an SEO agency being like, "Hey, I put together an audit of your website. Can I share it with you?" If you just say that, then the recipients could be thinking, "You say that, but you haven't shown me anything to suggest that you have done that." Really, what that sounds like is if I say yes, then you're going to do that audit and analysis and get me on a call and try and sell me. But if you have done that work at like some of it ahead of time, you could absolutely individually email someone and show like, "Hey, I came across your site." Or, like, not even, I don't like the phrase "came across your site" because people say that, but saying something to the effect of, "On your site, I noticed that your load time or whatever is this, and your um, I don't know, you're missing meta titles or descriptions or things like that. I have some other suggestions as well. Can I share them with you?" Like that, showing value and providing that value can absolutely help you get better responses.
Okay, so I think I have seen one of my friend Andrew. Uh,
Mhm,
I have seen him use NextWeave to pretty
mhm,
much create personalized images and bulk sending those to his leads, saying that,
mhm,
hey, this is how your site could look like. And he got around like 10% response rate,
mhm,
and I think that's pretty good. Like, he didn't really tell me like, okay, I'm getting that amount of positive responses, but yeah, he is making a lot of money from
Mhm.
that because he's getting 10% responses, and that is quite good. So I recently saw that Postaga did integrate with
Yeah.
NextWeave. So how would users, utilize that to get web design clients? And if you could.
So so for people who don't know, NextWeave basically lets you throw in like basically create personalized images in your outreach campaigns and things like that. And Postaga does have an integration. Like what it could look like, for example, is me having an email that says, "Hey, I took a look at your site," and then automatically inserting a screenshot of their website. Um, and I have some suggestions on your homepage. Can we have a conversation? That's like an example of like mass hyper personalization. Another example would be like, uh, uh, "Hey, can I grab you a coffee?" And it's like a picture of me holding a cup of coffee, and on the cup of coffee is written the recipient's first name or something like that. And that piece of content, the first name field, is matched up with the contact's first name. Um, so next week, like it, in some ways, I feel like it's like a little like gimmicky. But that being said, it stands out. It stands out from all the other cold emails. When like if I open an email and see my website's homepage, I'm gonna probably think for a second like what is this?
Okay, that's
um,
new, right?
right. So like that's I think so like that can be helpful.
So how would someone who has, let's say, web design slash SEO agency would really stand out from the crowd?
Mhm. So, I mean, you could stand like as far as like the personalization goes, you could use like NextWeave to take a screenshot of their website and saying, "Hey, I saw your site and I have some suggestions on how I might reorganize things or update it to make it more SEO friendly or help you rank better in search or be more accessible or mobile friendly or whatever." Like, I mean, like 10 years ago when I was pitching web design services, I often an angle I would take was that we want to make sure that you're like update your site to make it mobile friendly and responsive because back in 2013 there were like most sites weren't necessarily responsive. Some sites companies had a separate mobile site that was terrible, and not great for SEO. And so like a pitch angle of ours was that. Um, so like yeah, there are different things that you can do with like the personalization aspect to like stand out for agencies. Besides a screenshot of the site, you may want to try something like using the personalization to have something that calls to them that like whether it's something with like their name on it or whatever to like even if it's like a mock-up rendering of like let's say you've designed one homepage and you insert the company's name into the heading, something like that, that'll stand out too.
Great. So, okay. So I think we have wrapped up most of the stuff already, and we don't really have enough time. So, just
Mm,
one last mini story. It's
sure.
where we would really appreciate it if you could just share one of your bad, horrible client stories and things to look out for.
The lesson I'd say is in hindsight, bad clients, I I've I could have seen it coming in the sales process, and uh just based on like how we interacted, how like the client treated us or looked at our service, but I like still like push forward to close the sale and get the deal. um I guess one example that comes to mind was um I have two that come to mind. One was we sold a website and SEO services to this firm, and the person like this is usually like a red flag is they had a bad experience with another agency, and they had a bad experience with several other agencies in the past. Now, I can understand people having bad experiences with SEO agencies. There are plenty of bad SEO agencies out there. But if you've only had bad experiences with SEO agencies, I might be wondering how much of it is them versus you and your expectations. So we signed on the client. We were doing what we do, doing SEO, and then 3 months in, he's like, "Hey, I'm not ranking number one yet. What gives?" And I'm trying to explain to him like, as I mentioned when we started, like it takes time. The people who are already ranking number one in search have been doing that for working on their SEO for years, and you can't just expect that within 3 months of starting from scratch, you're gonna outrank them. So I don't know what to tell you here. Setting expectations at the beginning, which I did, he completely seemed to ignore. So then he's like, "All right, I'm canceling. I'm done." And like he's basically saying like, Give me my money back, or I will sue you." Um, and like, I'm like, "All right, this is a first. I haven't been threatened to be sued before." Like we got into it with them, and then our we dealt with it. Then, funny enough, then like time goes by, 6 months goes by, and he comes back to us and he says, "Hey, so my site's ranking better now. Would you be interested in working with me again?"
Okay.
And I'm like, and I just nope.
Run, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the lesson is that in the sales process, you can usually spot a difficult client based on like either them trashing the people they worked with previously, or them not understanding what you do, and like not listening to you, or not like you try and set expectations. That's an important thing, is like set expectations so that you can meet them. But if they have expectations that are too high, that they're just not hearing you with, then it's just not going to be a good fit, because you're never going to be able to deliver on it. Like if they say like, "Oh, I want to be ranking number one in 3 months," uh, I'm not going to just sign them to disappoint them, because I don't want to deal with that. They're not going to stay with me long term. So yeah, be mindful of that, I would say.
Right. So yeah, all right. I think that's a wrap. Well, what are your words of wisdom for beginner or like entrepreneurs who are just starting out? What are your words of wisdom to wrap this
Oh,
show up? Well, our show is named GPN Show, where it's all about growth, proof, and network. It's the thingy where we ask the words of wisdom from the people who come in. So yeah,
I'd say it's running and starting your own business is a journey, and it's a process that will improve over time, and you're going to learn a lot along the way. And where you're at day one, provided that you're learning from your experiences and everything like that, you're going to improve. And what your offer is, what your service is on day one, it may change, and that's fine. But just I'd say be receptive and be open, be always looking to learn and improve and just better yourself. And as you level up, and you're going to level up your business and level up your team and those around you as well. So um, I'd say really just like learn as much as you can. Don't come in with any assumptions, and be prepared and let your assumptions be tested. And yeah, just kind of iterate and develop.
thank you so much, Andy, for this incredible session. You really took the time and really did give us a lot of value in this entire interview. So yeah, thank you so much, and wrap. See you later.